Today we have a Sansui 9090 non-dB. I don't have an antenna hooked up to this, but non-dB up for a vintage gear review. These were manufactured between 1975 and 1977. Direct coupled, 110 watts per channel. Big, heavy. That's why I'm doing the gear review on my workbench instead of downstairs, because this thing weighs like 52 pounds and I'd have to lug it all the way down the stairs. And I don't want to do that. Now, for more detailed lineup information, I did a review on a Sansui 9090 dB. You might want to reference that one. I'm not going to go into as deep of a dive as I did regarding the series that it belongs to and all the other flavors of receivers that were going on at the time. So this will be a little bit of a shorter vintage gear review focused only on this 9090. This is the only one I've seen. I've serviced or worked on probably, I think, 3 or 4 9090 dBs, but I've never come across a 9090. There was some overlap between the 9090 and the 9090 dB. From what I could tell during my research for this video, the 9090s were produced between 75 and 77, and the 9090 dBs were produced between 76 and 79. So it looks like in 76 and 77, Sansui was selling both, but that's only based on what I saw in my limited, knowledge of what was actually going on when I was like 4 years old. As far as the 9090 goes, aesthetics, I think these are gorgeous. 9090s, 9090 dBs, they're both just beautiful. They're beautiful receivers. I love the meters, I love the colors, I love the black background for the dial. I just love everything about it. Sound, both sound fantastic. Very balanced sound, nice sound, plenty of power, 110 watts per channel. Hookups, easy. Operation, fairly easy, and I'll go over that in a minute. In fact, let's do that now, and I'll tell you about the one thing I don't like about the 9090, and I cannot remember if my 9090 dB does the same thing. We'll start off with the dial plate here. So this is, again, the 9090 non-dB. We have power, filters, muting, that's audio muting. We have the ability to connect a Dolby adapter, but this does not come with Dolby on here. So this is Dolby adapter, or the Dolby adapter function button. FM muting off, noise cancellation, meter selector, that's either signal or multipath. I may have to flash up something explaining what that does, because I don't really know. Speakers off, A, B, C, A and B, A and C, 2 headphone jacks. We have turnovers for bass and treble. We also have mid-range, volume, balance back here, loudness off and on, mode stereo mono, tape play either source, or we can select between our decks, right, if we're going to be doing some copying or recording, microphone level. And then finally we have a selector. And the one thing I don't like about the 9090, and I cannot remember if my 9090 dB does the same thing, if I go to phono, the dial amps go out. FM, FM auto or Dolby FM, AM, the dial lights stay on, auxiliary, the dial amps go out. That's a similar thing that I believe like Sansui 4000s did. I don't remember if the 5000A did that. I'm pretty sure the 5000X did not do that. But that's the one thing that I personally do not like about the 9090, because I like when I'm listening to phono seeing all of these gorgeous lamps lit up. Now, the interesting thing about this is I actually have LEDs in here and it doesn't look bad. You know, when I put LEDs in a Marantz, they're kind of obnoxious and they're really bright, but on the Sansui, they're not overpowering. I kind of like them. I did have to replace the meter lamp, and I'll talk about serviceability here in a minute. But yeah, so those are the features and functions. Again, hookups are okay. Serviceability. The nice thing about this Sansui 9090 is it does not have that dreaded Dolby board that you have to worry about with the pins that kind of pass through the Dolby board going in and and rebuilding those, which is very time consuming. And all the sound passes through the Dolby board on the DB, and it's kind of a nightmare for people to go in and do preventive maintenance on that. I know that was common in the earlier 9090 DBs, and the newer 9090 DBs were a little more reliable in that respect. But right now we're talking about the 9090, which doesn't have that board, so we don't have to worry about it. The other thing I like about this, when talking about serviceability, is it has slotted boards for some of the boards, so you can just pop them out. For example, when I replace the lamps, there's one board that's sitting vertically right behind them, kind of prevents you from moving the lamp housing back far enough to change the lamps. I just popped that out of the board, or popped the board out of the slot, and then I was able to move the housing back and change the lamps, and it was fairly easy. I was also able to access these two lamps here. Those were fairly easy. The view meter lamps, I think on the left meter were out. Those were kind of a pain in the butt. There are two. Luckily, I came across an Audio Karma post where someone did it the easy way, and that's what I chose to do. Typically, if you're replacing those lamps, there's major disassembly required. What I did was I removed the faceplate, I removed the bracket that sits in front of these VU meters, and then I took a very thin razor blade and I basically cut these off of that bracket. I was able to push them through the opening and then pull them out kind of the bottom here, and then replace the two lamps. And they're two little tiny, like 3mm grain of rice lamps. So, it took me less than an hour to do. Had I gone and done it the right way, by tearing the whole thing apart, easily another hour to change those lamps. So luckily I came across that Audio Karma post, because I'm like, man, there's got to be an easier way to do this. And indeed there was. I have not had to repair one of these. I have not worked on the Dolby board on the DB model. My service experience on these has basically been limited to cleaning the pots, changing the lamps, making sure DC offset and bias are set. It was good on this one. So I can't really talk about repairability. Basic service though, lamps were easy except for the VU meters. Cleaning the pots was easy. Cleaning the controls was fairly easy. I could kind of get to those. There was a little bit of spray and pray, but it wasn't horrible. If you're looking for one of these, what I would look for first is condition. This cabinet is in pristine condition. In fact, I almost thought about buying the cabinet and putting it on my 9090 DB, because the 9090 DB that I got from the Goodwill for $5.99 has a pretty beat up cabinet. And I actually put this cabinet on there and I thought, I want to keep my 9090 DB find as in original state as possible. So that's what I chose to do with that. So looking for one of these, cosmetic condition, completeness, maybe a picture of everything lit up to make sure the meters are working and the lamps are good, knobs and buttons. They made a lot of these. eBay sells a lot of these. There are parts available for these, so it's not too bad to find parts. One thing to note that I don't know if this is common, but one repair I had to do to this when I changed the LEDs out, all of the solder joints, and I say all because it took me a while, I'm just going to assume it was all of them. The solder joints feeding the dial lamps, a lot of them were cracked. Right. So we had solder joints that were bad. The lights on either end of the dial would flicker and they would go out. So I basically had to resolder probably 6 power wires, both going into the board and then feeding the lamps. Once I did that, right, they haven't flickered. I just finished the repair like 5 minutes ago. So if it flickers, then I've got to go in and maybe touch another 1 or 2 up. But I would, based upon what I've seen with this, I would have known by now that those were an issue. So what I'm trying to get at is, if you see an image of one of these, maybe someone is selling it for parts are not working, and you see some of the lamps out, it could be just a dial lamp is bad, or you may have to touch up the solder joints on that board. It wasn't too bad, but there are a lot of wires back there, so you do have to be pretty careful. And old solder, it takes a while to reheat old solder. I was gonna remove it, but I just decided to be patient and reheat it and reflow some solder. Once I did that, again, it seems to be fine. Looking to buy one of these, what can you expect to pay? These things are outrageous. Now, people will ask outrageous prices. I'm gonna flash one up as I was doing the research for this video this morning, over $3,000. That's crazy. But the high end, if you were to pick up one of these, like in this condition, this thing is almost a time capsule. You can expect to pay, or people are paying, maybe that's a better way to phrase it, people are paying over $2,000 for a 9090 in this condition. And that is shocking to me. It's a great receiver. It's a beautiful receiver. It's a gorgeous receiver. This sounds phenomenal, but $2,000, man, that is crazy. And that's what they're selling for. Now there is a little bit of a spread. So 2,000-ish. I could see you spending more. And again, this is for a 9090, not a DB. Over $2,000. This one, I don't know. I mean, there are two little tiny spots where the veneer has chipped. A couple of little spots here, a little spot on the side. Almost, you don't really notice them unless somebody points them out. So one that's working, that's in decent cosmetic condition, those are selling for $1,500. So this would probably fall in that $1,500 to $2,000 if I really think about it. Plus I'm always using Omaha, Nebraska prices. On the coast, you're gonna pay way more. In Omaha, you're not gonna pay that much. And then what is even more shocking is for parts, these are selling for more than $1,000. The lowest price one that I found for parts are not working was, I think, $800 plus 130 or 50 bucks shipping. So by the time you pay taxes and fees, you're over $1,000 on one of these to work on. I think that one had a left channel out or something like that. So it's absolutely insane. These are beautiful. And again, I'm biased at least towards lower prices on these because I did get mine at a Goodwill, but holy smokes, these are insane. These are absolutely insane. I don't know that I could spend that much on one of these. I really don't. I'm glad that people do, right? It's a good thing, but you know, yeah, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. I was gonna just take this down to the shop without doing a repair or without doing a gear review video on it. I didn't do a repair because it really wasn't much involved with the service or the repair. Plus there are tons of videos out there already on these. But I decided to pull it out of the trunk of my car and just shoot a real quick video here in the garage. I've got another receiver I've got to do a video on at some point this week. But having a non-DB 9090, I couldn't pass it up. So there you have the Sansui 9090, great receiver. Man, if you could find one at a good price, I wouldn't blink at buying one of these for less than 500 bucks, for parts, even if it was in a little bit rough shape, because you can probably put a little bit of elbow grease into it, maybe buy a new cabinet for it and have something that's really special. So that'll wrap it up for the Sansui 9090. As always, if you like what you see, like, hit subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video.